Hello, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. And as always, I'm very glad that you had the opportunity to join us here today. So, today I thought that we would go a little deeper into things than we have to date. And in that, what I wanted to talk about, as I always do, is to preface this. And I think it's important because it's something that we really need to hold in mind, I think, to get the kind of effects out of the information that we provide to ourselves that come to us in these types of formats. And that is to keep in mind that we're an extension of the rest of who and what we are. We're an extension of the higher self, the higher mind, the soul, the oversoul, all that is, whatever you'd like to say. And that we create this experience in collaboration with that aspect of us through the manipulation of energy, consciousness, through all the various mechanisms of consciousness that are associated with how we utilize energy and consciousness as we create our physical experience, our so-called physical experience anyway. And so again, it's an important thing to keep in mind. It's sort of the foundation of then exploring all the various information that you explore otherwise. So what I thought we would get into today, and what I wanted to explore today, was an idea that when I mention it, initially, you may be, as I mentioned in my Instagram post, a little perplexed. And hopefully, I'll develop it in a way that will bring you to an understanding about what my initial statement actually means. And that statement is going to be this, that fundamentally, your experience here, we'll say it like that, in physical reality has no inherent meaning. And so, as you hear that, you may think it's your life, think about all the things that have happened, and of course, come to the conclusion that your life has quite a bit of meaning. Lots of different meaning has been attached to your life. And this, of course, is true. So, how do the two of those come together? And that's what I want to talk about today. So, I'm going to use some examples about things to kind of set the tone for where we're heading. And I've used them before, particularly in the post that I just made, but they worked well, so I'll use them again here. So, I'll start with this because it's something that I enjoy. So, let's say that you enjoy being outdoors. You enjoy walking, hiking, biking, sailboating, boating, snowshoeing. Well, we won't say snowshoeing. Let's stay with things that would happen in the summertime, especially if the weather is nice. Paragliding, rock climbing, whatever it might happen to be. Some sort of an outdoor sport. Say you really like it a lot. And so you have planned the upcoming day to do that because the quote unquote weather report says that it's going to be this really nice day that'll be perfect for that. It's going to be warm enough, sunny or maybe partly sunny, maybe a little bit of a breeze or more, depending on what you need for your activity, but it's going to be really nice. And then as that day shows up, everything has changed. That day is now a rainy day. It's going to rain in a drizzly, light rain kind of a way all day long. And so as that happens, you're going to give that turn of events a particular meaning in your life. Now, somebody else who, let's say, farms in the area that you're going to do your activity in, somebody who is looking to have their crops grow well, may in fact welcome that rain And the sunny day, especially if it's part of a long string of sunny days, may not be what that individual would like. And so they are going to give that rainy day a different meaning. And so, of course, this happens all the time, right? You'll have many, many, many situations and circumstances that come about in your life, many events, all day long, every day, every month, every year, just like everybody does. And what happens is that life in that regard, your physical experience, but really all of existence, but we're talking about just the physical experience right now. But as you and as all of consciousness, all of spirit, designed this particular type of reality, one of the aspects of this reality is that it is a neutral reality. In other words, there's many events that happen within this reality. However, each of those events has the meaning that each individual gives to that event. No event has any inherent meaning when it shows up in physical existence. It's up to you to provide the meaning that you will to that event. Now, of course, this will go back to the beliefs that you have about things, the definitions that you have about things, what it is that you trust is true, which is what your beliefs are about yourself, about other people, about situations, about circumstances, about the world, about everything. Right? That's what your beliefs are. They're what you trust about existence, what you trust to be true about existence. So they will flow back to that. And so, of course, the meaning that you attach to any particular action, any particular event that happens in your life will flow directly from the definitions and the beliefs that you hold about yourself and that event in that moment. So, what's nice about that, of course, is that you have the ability to alter the meaning that you give to those because you have the ability to alter the beliefs that you're utilizing to filter that particular experience through. And of course, you've done this in your life many times. And I've used some very simple examples, and I'll use them again just because most people, especially in the United States anyway, identify with them. And if nothing else, you'll understand the ideas or something similar in your country. And you can identify with that as well. So in the United States, when you're a child, unless maybe you've been raised in a different religion, but there is a large number of individuals that are Christian or Catholic or things similar to that in this country. And so they observe Christmas in a particular way. And part of that experience, especially for children, is this personality that's called Santa Claus, right? And this individual brings gifts or coal, depending, of course, on how you've been over the year, right? The naughty or nice list that Santa Claus makes up, right? So this is a belief that is a very powerful belief. You believe it is true when you are very young, right? And then at some particular age, depending on who you were, might be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, wherever it might happen to be, you will let go of that belief, right? And it's just a process. You may have believed due to various things you'd heard from perhaps television shows, maybe more frequently relatives, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, whoever it might happen to be, that it's dangerous to cross the street by yourself, right? There are these cars and they can hit you, damage you, kill you, whatever it might happen to be. And you carry that belief with you through a certain age. And then you naturally let go of it when you gain more information about things, which is really the way that we move through beliefs and we gain information in various ways. Typically, that's through experience. Let's take riding a bike as another example. Before you learn how to ride a bike, your belief is that you do not know how to ride the bike. But you have this experience, right? Somebody helps you practice riding the bike. And then after a particular length of time, depending on who you are, you're riding a bike, and now your belief is different, right? And the more you ride that bike, to a certain point anyway, your belief becomes more firmly established in that regard, that you can do that. And so we have that process in our life all the time, where when we bring ourselves information, knowledge, and experience, we can switch from utilizing one belief, from trusting in one way that life is, in one way that we are, to another, right? And it depends on many, many things. But those things are there, and we use them all the time. One of the biggest things in that regard is to identify what your beliefs are, right? What kind of meaning you're giving to your life. In that, your feeling states, and we could say your emotions to some degree, but they're just a little bit different than your feeling states, are a huge part in that, right? Your feelings are meant to provide you with information. And information in particular about what beliefs and definitions you're using in that moment about yourself and the situation or the individuals that you are having your experience with in that moment, right? The feelings that you get will tell you about the beliefs that you're utilizing, right? And I've mentioned examples before. I'll mention a couple here. Anger typically is you believing that you have no choice in the moment, that you are choiceless. Frustration is understanding that you have a choice, but you're not quite clear about what that choice is. You don't have enough information yet to understand that choice. It's not quite the same as what anger tells you about yourself. And there's many, many others. I've spoken about this fairly extensively in the audio podcast. So you can go back in those episodes, and if you look at the titles, you'll easily be able to tell which it was, and you can listen to those. And I run through the various emotions and what it is that the message that emotional state, that feeling state, is attempting to convey to you in that particular moment about what belief you're using. So as you have those responses, as you realize that you're giving a meaning to the situation, and of course, we'll fold in the idea of mindfulness here as well. Because in order to do that, that particular practice will be very helpful. And so what this means is that as you're having your experiences in life, you are perpetually, I'll suggest, paying attention to how you're responding within yourself, right? Because that response is going to tell you what meaning you're providing to that event, that circumstance, that situation, which is then going to clue you in, along with the feeling states that you have, of what your beliefs and definitions are about that, right? So you can gain a lot of information if you're being attentive, if you're being mindful to how it is that you're responding inside when you're having particular events go on. Once you've done that, then you can go about choosing how you would like to do that differently in the future. And really, it doesn't have to be a very difficult process. Many times, as you identify the belief that's associated with that, you may even see in the moment that it's fairly maybe it might be too strong of a word, but I'll say absurd to even believe like that about that particular thing. It just does not make any sense that you would have that belief about that situation. And you can even compare your experience through using the internet with the experiences that many, many, many people have that are similar, and see how there's the ability to respond differently to that event. And there are things throughout life that will help you to do this in a way that you may not even understand it's being done. You can read a book that has situations and circumstances in it that attach to certain beliefs within you. And as the individual in the book moves beyond those, then you have released those to a certain degree. You do the same thing with films, whether you're viewing them in your home or you're viewing them in theater. Songs can help in that regard. TV shows, all sorts of things will help you in that way. So, in this, as part of what we discussed, we talked about your response to an event. So, that response occurs as a result of the beliefs and the definitions that you're holding in that moment. That response then is a cue to the rest of you to how your reality will show up around you, the type of reflection of consciousness and energy that you are going to see creating your physical experience around you. Because again, remember that all things tangible, we'll put it that way, in existence are made up of these things called molecules, which are made up of these smaller parts called atoms. We're going to talk about parts for a while here because it seems to make sense to us. Those atoms are made up of tinier particles, neutrons, protons, electrons. Those particles are made up of smaller particles. Those smaller particles are nothing but, maybe I'll phrase it, congealed energy, right? That overlaps many, many, many times, maybe we'll say, to create the effect of that particle, right? That then goes on and on to create the physical experience that you tend to have here as it becomes molecules and then expresses it in the way that we experience it being expressed for ourselves here. So consciousness takes its cue from you. The consciousness of the infinite you, and of course you're the infinite you, but you just don't see it that way from this perspective. So from the soul, from the oversoul, from all that is, from God, from Paramatma, from the great mystery, from the Tao, from whatever you would like to say, as the energy and consciousness from that largest expression of you flows into this experience, it will pass through the filters of your beliefs and definitions. And the response that you experience as you're going through your day is there to clue you in to what beliefs and definitions you're using. And if you've done this for a while, you have an awareness. And if you don't have this awareness, I'll mention it now, that your experience of physical reality is a reflective experience. In other words, it's kind of like, in one way of using some symbolism, you're a participant in a movie theater watching the images on the film that are being projected onto that screen, right? With the utilization of the light and the film strip, the light passing through the film strip to then end up on the screen and then you experiencing it. Physical reality is somewhat the same, right? It's a reflection, right? A holographic reflection of all the various beliefs that you contain within you, some of which work automatically, like gravity, like land, water, air, clouds, sun, And that may be confusing to a particular degree, but there are certain beliefs that are very automatic as far as how consciousness forms itself here. And then some we have much more choice in utilizing, especially as we explore ourselves more and more. Now, of course, many of those beliefs we embraced, shall we say, chose to utilize in our lifetime. As we were exposed to those through individuals that were close to us and important to us, whether we actually had the experiences or it was just through what I might call energy at this moment, right? Empathy, those types of things, right? Ways that information can be conveyed to you without individuals actually needing to say something or to express themselves physically in any particular way, right? Telepathic types of ways. We all have those experiences in life. You meet somebody, you haven't even spoken to that individual yet, and you have a particular feeling about that person, right? Or you can walk into a particular room and you have a feeling about what it's like to be in that room, or maybe a town or whatever it might happen to be, right? We all have those abilities to tie into a whole variety of things through energy, through those types of things. Empathic experiences, telepathic experiences, whatever you want to call them. And so you've aligned with a whole variety of beliefs in that regard that your consciousness is then filtered through to have this experience. And so your responses in any particular situation, again, are very important to pay attention to. Now, as a reflective experience, your physical reality, one of the things that if you have pursued this information for long enough, you come to understand is that the inner experiences that you have, your psychological states, your emotional states, all those various things that are going on within you are then reflected around you. So what occurs is that your environment is then a reflection, your outer environment of your inner environment. And so many times what individuals will do is understanding that is that they will express themselves at certain times in a particular way, looking to have their outer environment change. The difficulty, however, is that it's not really the way that they genuinely feel inside all the time, maybe a large portion of the time, right? So rather than looking to your exterior environment to tell you, to let you know that in fact you have made a change, a more potent way to do this is to look to your responses, right? Because your responses are going to tell you what beliefs and what definitions you're still utilizing. And as those change, as you have the physical experiences that you've had, quote unquote, in the past, and you respond and you genuinely respond differently to those experiences, then eventually what will occur is that your outer experience will reflect that consistently, because that's what's going on within you consistently. And so it's your responses and the concept of mindfulness to pay attention to those responses that is really one of the more powerful keys to being able to alter and change your experience of reality in the way that you would like to. Now, of course, understanding the mechanisms of consciousness, in other words, how all this comes together in physical reality, that has importance as well. Having more and more experiences of who and what you are as a self, paying attention to all the various ways that the inner you, the self, the soul, the higher mind, the higher self, the oversoul, other individuals that are aspects of consciousness, people call them guides sometimes, whatever you'd like to say, are helping you out. And there's help all the time that's going on. How all of that is showing up to you as information, right? Whether it's your regular physical environment, whether it's intuition, impulses, impressions, inspiration, curiosity, can be many things, right? There's many ways that the inner you has of doing that. Daydreams, dreams, what we call dreams during the night, information that we see, that we hear, all sorts of various things. There's many ways that that information shows up for us. Paying attention to that, of course, is something that's a large part of things. But those things will move and change and alter, and your ability to pick them up will shift and alter as you recognize the beliefs and the definitions that you're giving things, and as you move to change those, as you alter those in your reality, everything else will shift, right? So learn, I'll suggest anyway, to pay close attention to how you're responding to something. And if you want something to change, keep paying attention to that. How are you responding to this? Okay, because again, you're the one that's giving it meaning. You might even be able to watch other individuals in the same situation not respond the way that you've just been responding. They're giving it a different meaning, right? So that helps you to understand that that potential is there. If they can do it, certainly you can do it. Now, you may have more challenging aspects within you that may make it take a little bit longer for you to express it in that way. That can be true. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. You certainly can do it. So, as you're approaching your reality, as you're attempting to choose the way that you would like your reality to unfold, and in that, of course, there's another part, and we've mentioned this before as others have, and that is there's, of course, this particular aspect of you, the quote unquote physical aspect of you, the aspect of you having the physical experience. And then there's the rest of you that is non physical still, right? And that interaction that happens. And so I've used a metaphor before where there's the you going through this journey down in the valley, and then there's the you, the higher mind, the soul, the oversoul, whatever you'd like to say, that has a perspective of the mountaintop above the valley, sees everything, and actually knows everything about the journey that's unfolding for you in that valley. It sees all the twists and the turns and everything about your journey, right? So when you're thinking about the type of experience you would like to have, and if you're going to use your imagination in that regard, which I'll suggest is a very powerful tool to actually use, it taps into all of consciousness. And when you imagine things, what you want to do is you want to imagine those as fully as you can, right? The visual effects, the auditory effects, the smells, the taste, the touches, the feeling states, right? As full as you can possibly make it. Then what you want to do is you want to let it go. And you want to allow the higher self to bring that scenario to you in a way that will actually, in the end, be the most fulfilling and satisfying for you. Now, it may not look much like what it was that you imagined, or it might be quite similar. The thing is that don't worry about how it shows up, right? And this is where responding is helpful, right? Because if you know those things, then you can be prepared, shall we say, to respond in a particular way to it, right? If you can understand that there's an aspect of you that understands how your life should move and shift as you move through your life to bring you all the things in life that will be helpful for you to live your life and be relevant for the type of life that you chose to live when you came into this particular experience. Not that that doesn't have a lot of flexibility behind it, it does, but there are some themes that you definitely chose to explore here. And as you do that, if you can utilize the way that you approach your life in collaboration with understanding that your experience here is provided for you as you choose what it means, as you respond to it, right? And as you have particular desires about it and particular needs within it, right? The higher you sends you that experience, right? And it's filtered, of course, through your beliefs, but it is created for you, shall we say, in a large regard from those deeper parts of yourself. So trusting in that is a very powerful thing to do. It takes a little bit of practice, of course, like many things on this journey do. But the more that you can do that, the more you will find your life blossoming in a way that feels increasingly satisfying and fulfilling for you. And it can show up in ways that you never expected before. In fact, frequently it can do that, if, of course, you allow it to do that. So, paying attention, being mindful of your inner states, of how you're responding to things, is really a very powerful thing to be able to do, right? Don't look so much to how things are changing around you, because, of course, that's the reason why you want to do all the things that you're doing many times, is because you want things to change around you, right? There's nothing wrong with that, of course, right? It's all about becoming more of who and what you are within the experience, which means things are going to change. The thing is that use the tools that you have at your disposal to set up the change that is going to come, and then let the inner you bring that change to you in the way that it, from its very large and expanded view of things, from that view, how it knows to provide it to you, right? Regardless of what area it may be in. It may be in a relationship. You may think that that particular individual is just the right individual to get in a relationship with, but there may be things about the way that it develops, maybe not too far down the line, maybe a little further down the line, that the deeper you sees very clearly that it has a strong potential to move in that way, right? And so it doesn't make that relationship easy for you to move into, right? Now you can push against that, and you can try to have that relationship anyway. Many times those are very challenging things to do, right? There's a lot of things that come up in the relationship, right? It can be anything. It can be a job that's like it. It can be a trip that you want to take. It can be a little outing that you want to do. It can be a meal that you want to have someplace. Regardless, it can be many, 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 many things, right? The more you learn to pay attention to the cues from the inner you about the types of directions that it knows you will find more fulfilling than something else, the more fulfilling and satisfying you're going to find your life. And so your responses, right, what's going on within you, is a very strong part of that whole experience. And realizing that, knowing that it's really that, even though your environment is a reflection of what's going on within you, and many times wanting to look to that reflection to see it change, right? We're looking for a change in that reflection. It's very much like you standing in front of a mirror. And if you have one eye closed and one eye open, and you want that reflection in the mirror to have both eyes open, well, you're not going to see that until you open both your eyes, right? That reflection can only reflect what it is that you have going on. Now, if you open it and close it and open it and close it, and you expect the reflection to show just an open eye, it's not going to do that, right? So the same thing goes with your responses. Your responses tell you what's going on within you, tells you the meaning that you're giving something, tells you about the beliefs and the definitions that you've applied to that thing, right? Which are then the filters that your consciousness and energy is going to move through, that then provides your outer experience, right? Your physical experience. So pay attention to your responses. Work on your responses. That's the important part, right? Work on how you respond to whatever might happen to be in your life, and make it genuine, right? And when it is genuine, then eventually what's going to happen is that your outer experience will change. In particular, if you've seen yourself have the same situations show up in your life, and now you can respond to them in a neutral way, right? You can go, well, I understand this. I see this. Okay, how do I want to respond to it? I want to respond to it in this way. When you're able to do that with whatever might happen to be, then you'll see those things move and shift in your life. Now, at some point, out of the blue, let's say, You may have an experience like that show up for you again, but it won't make any difference because you'll automatically respond in a way that means that that particular situation or circumstance won't bring challenges with it for you because you responded in a particular way and it's a genuine response for you, which means it's who you are in that moment, right? So I think for today, we're going to make that it. So as always, again, I'm very glad that you had the opportunity to join us here today. And I hope that your exploration of yourself is a more fulfilling and satisfying exploration all the time. And the challenges that you experience, you come to understand easier, more rapidly, shall we say, and you're able to move beyond those more quickly than you have in the past. So, in that, I'll see you later and take care.